Welcome back. Another episode 3. Our favourite fighter, Alexander Volkanovski, the great in UFC 325 Sydney this weekend. You'll also be in attendance. You lucky son of a gun. I won't be, but yeah, we've got the rematch versus Diego Lopes, an absolute barn burner the first time around when they fought. We were on the edge of our seat praying that Volkanovski's chin held up after two knockout losses to Islam Makhachev and also Ilia Topuria. But, mate, I couldn't be more excited. How about yourself?
Mate, I am beyond stoked. I'm counting down the days. I'm always excited to see the GOAT, the Shell Harbour legend, Alex Volkanovski on the big screen, and I'm so excited that I'm going to get to see him fight on his home turf. Always been a very close to the heart fighter, being from the same region, but Aussie legend, mate, and it's just going to be an incredible fight to see. So very, very excited for this. Card looks amazing as well. Obviously, a lot of Aussies, and the main card shaping up to be pretty impressive. Actually, I'm quite excited for us to go through these fights.
Yeah, 100%. Let's start from the bottom. I know a guy that you've been following pretty closely, Quillan Salkeld, versus Jamie Malarkey, someone who Volkanovski absolutely flatlined a few years back when he was on his rise
Mm.
in the regional scene. So, yeah, do you want to kick us off with your thoughts on that one? Keys to victory?
Absolutely. The minority warrior in Quillan Salkeld. He was debut of the year. Yes, last year, debutant of the year. Had some absolutely amazing performances, two highlight reel knockouts, and a good decision. So stayed very active. I think that Quillan Salkeld is the new wave of MMA in Australia, obviously coming from the Eternal MMA promotion into the UFC. He's going up against a tough, veteran in Jamie Malarkey, who again is in Volk's camp. So he's stepping up on short notice. So we think, maybe the cardio might be a bit of an issue, whether he's staying fight fit year round. He did fight in Perth. He did get a win over there. I did see that one live as well. Very good performance from him. I think for Quillen, the keys to victory is going to be, you got to be putting Jamie on the back foot. Jamie's a big guy for 155. He's a tall, tall guy. So I think that he needs to close the distance, try and get in there, use those head kicks, feint with kicks to the body, and just keep him at his distance, keep him on the back foot. And I think he can actually get a finish. I think for Jamie, it's the opposite. You want to play at your range, keep him at long, tee off on him, get in, get out, in and out, those sort of movements, stick and move, cut angles, use the octagon to your advantage, try and stay in the middle. But yeah, that's my thoughts. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, we've got the minority killer in Soul Killer, as you said. I think he might struggle this time fighting another Aussie. But nah, honestly, I'm with you the same. I think being in Volk's camp is going to give Malarkey a bit of a leg up. That kind of level of experience is going to be massive for him. I still think Soul Kill is the favourite in this one to get it done, but he's got to put the pressure on early. We looked at Gaethje versus Paddy last weekend, and you go, Gaethje's a massive underdog. If you get in someone's face early and you can put some severe damage on them, it changes the whole way the fight goes down. So yeah, I've got him coming in early with some pressure and then, like you said, dipping in and out, cutting angles, staying off that center line. If he can do that, he's going to make it difficult for Solkid to get off some of those big head kicks and some good strikes that he likes to down the middle. He's very good with his straights. But yeah, I do love this card. I've just got to mention, just for the fact that almost everything's connected. Everyone's fought somewhere, someone somewhere. You've got Malarkey versus Volkanovski a few years ago. You've also got Malarkey versus Mauricio Ruffi, who also Mauricio won that one by knockout in 2024. Then you've got Salkeld coming into it as the next wave of Australian fighter. I just love this 155-pound division is absolutely shaping up to be what it once was. 145, 155 is fantastic. But yeah, I think I'm liking Solkill staying on that tear, to be honest with you. I think another win here gets him right up into the rankings, and he could potentially even jump it a bit and face the loser of BSD versus Dan Hooker if someone like Paddy Pimblett doesn't.
Yeah, I think you need to give him a bit more time before you throw him to the wolves in someone like Hooker, or Benoit Saint Denis. I think that what happens with these prospects is they get rushed and then they end up getting flatlined. So I think Quillen's young. He's 26. He's got a long career ahead of him. I think give him a couple more people outside the rankings. Give him a Jalen Turner. Give him an Edson Barbosa. Actually, I think Barbosa retired, unless he's
Believe
still going.
he
I think
retired in
he
his last
should.
fight.
If he didn't after the Jalen Turner fight, he should have retired. But give him someone on the outskirts of the rankings, and then maybe we can talk about a Fazeev or a Huffy or someone like that, sort of in the bottom of that top 15 range. There's a lot of up and coming prospects in that 155 division, and as you say, we're looking to get the 155 of old. But official prediction from me, I'm going Salkilled. I think it's going to be it's going to be a hard fight. I think it's going to be a 29-28 for Salkilled. That's what I'm
Yeah,
going.
I'm going decision as well, and may be incorrect here, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. That this might be the first time two Aussies are actually fighting each other in the same card. I'm going 29-28 decision. I agree with you. So yeah,
Nice.
that'll be good. Let's move on. So next we've got the return of the big man, Tai Tuivasa, facing off against Taliesin Teixeira. Number 12 and number 15. Teixeira coming off a knockout loss to Derek Lewis, I believe, was his last one.
It
Um,
was.
yeah, and then obviously, Tai, he's been out of the game for a little while now, looking very, very large, but obviously, he's got to be in shape to be able to make the 265-pound limit. How do you see that one going down?
To be honest, this is a fight that I would never put money on. Especially after the Waldo Cortez Acosta and Derek Lewis fight. This is one that I don't want to go anywhere near. We've got both guys coming off of losses who are in the top 15. So again, just goes to show, as we said in the last video, how stacked this heavyweight division is. Stacked. But I think Ty is on a very long losing streak. Taliesin Teixeira, he's a young prospect. He's in his, I believe, mid to early 20s. And he is coming off a KO loss. He got rushed up the rankings to Derek Lewis. As I said, he's young. He is dangerous. I think I've got to give this one to Taliesin Teixeira. I think Ty, he blew up to probably 320 pounds. And he did not look in the best shape, really putting the Bam Bam nickname to fruition there. But yeah, I'm going to go with Taliesin by knockout. I think he is quite athletic for the division, which is saying a lot because there's not many athletic people in it. But
Mm,
yeah, but again, I could be wrong. With heavyweights, you can never tell because some of these vets, like Derek Lewis, they'll come out and they'll just knock out a prospect. You can get away with it in these heavier divisions. But either way, I very much hope that this is not going past the first round. I can't bear to watch another slugfest between two heavyweights. But I'm going to pass over to you and get your prediction.
yeah, I mean, it's funny that you say that. Obviously, it's going back a few years now, but Tuivasa fought Derek Lewis when, they were both a lot more in their sort of prime back in 2022. And that was his last win. Since then, he's gone on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 losing streak. So, and most of them have been finishes as well, knocked out by Garn, knocked out by Pavlovich, submitted by Volkov, submitted by Tybura. And then he obviously lost that split decision before he's had some time out of the game against Rosenstruck, who's now been cut from the UFC. I think ring rust is a massive thing for especially these heavier weight divisions. It's one thing not fighting, but blowing up to 300 plus pounds potentially and not training properly, because there's no way you can be training properly if you're that size at that heavyweight limit. I don't like it. I think, like you said, you've got the hunger of the next gen coming through. You've got Teixeira coming off a loss, probably a bit shocked. He probably thought he was invincible coming out of the contender series. And then, he's been really rushed up the massive stacked division of heavyweight, like you said. I've got Teixeira round one knockout. Potentially, if he wants to come out and feel him out a bit more, I actually think that's probably going to suit him because I think Ty will gas. It might be an early round two stoppage, but I'm going late round one, feel him out for the first couple of minutes, stay at the range, because if I'm Ty, I think he's probably going to, if I think him, I think him, go for it from the gun. He's not going to be lasting 3 rounds in good shape. We've seen the likes of Derek Lewis, who has been active, and you go, if your gas tank's looking like that, I'd put a safe bet on that. Ty's probably going to have an even worse one. Maybe his guard
Yeah,
game will be slightly better, and he'll actually lift a knee. But we'll see how we go from there. But yeah, official prediction from me: I'm going late round one stoppage to Shearer, back into this stacked heavyweight division, and up the rankings we go.
absolutely, mate, absolutely. But I'm excited for this next one. This next one between Rafael Fiziev and Mauricio Rufy.
The
Now,
people's main
this is the Gene Silva Arnold Allen of this card. This is the barn burner. This is two strikers who I'm very excited to see. Maybe we'll get some grappling in the form of a scissor sweep from Rufy, which would be awesome. I've seen him drilling that with the likes of Israel Adesanya recently. And talking of people in Volk's camp, I think this has been one of the most stacked Volk camps to date. He's been working with Rufy and with Malaki as well. So for these guys, they're getting world-class exposure to one of the best to ever do it. Obviously, we've got Rafael Fiziev coming off of his fight with Gaethje, where he pretty much got outclassed again for 3 rounds. Just goes to show that he's sort of in that gatekeeper conversation for the division. We've got a very tall, lengthy striker in Rufy versus a sort of stockier, short Muay Thai fighter in Fiziev. So I best believe both of these boys' bodies are going to be sore after this barn burner on Sunday. I think keys to victory in this one for Fiziev, it's going to be staying in that sort of mid-range. Rufy likes to bounce on the outside. It's how he got that spinning wheel kick against Bobby Green. But I think if you keep your hands up, like he has that tight, high Muay Thai guard, that's what you got to do. You got to shut him down, break his legs down, hit him with those calf kicks, feint with those kicks, go to the body, throw some head kicks in there as well. And, I think he's got pretty crisp hands, which we have seen in his previous fights. For Rufy, you got to keep him at long. You got to shut him down by keeping him at your range. Use those spinning attacks, use those leg kicks, throw some body kicks in there as well, and keep the hands up, because otherwise you're going to get dropped. And, he's definitely been working on the grappling in Volk's camp. As we saw, it didn't really hold up in his last fight. But both guys coming off of losses, they're both going to be hungry. I'm leaning more towards Mauricio Rufy in this fight. Do I think he knocks out Fiziev? No. I think if Justin Gaethje can't knock you out, I don't know if I don't know if he's going to get knocked out. I'm going to go with another point decision for Mauricio Rufy.
Yeah, nice, nice. I've got some opinions of my own, which differ from yours, but yeah, I feel somewhat bad for Zeev. I think recently he's moved up the rankings just a little bit due to a couple of losses from Moicano and Dariush. I think he was ranked just outside the top 10 or maybe just inside it before. But outside of his last win against Bahamondes, he had 2 fights with Gaethje. So he's essentially fighting someone in the top who's been in and out of the top five. He's not been out of the top five, I think, for the last sort of couple of years. And it's a tough fight to take when you are lower down in the rankings. Like you said, he thrives in the pocket, those short and sharp kicks, but so does Gaethje. So he's lost those fights, both by decision as well. His stock only went up, but his ranking spot didn't. So as soon as he actually fought someone that is slightly lower down the rankings, still maturing, still young, like a Bahamondes, who he'll be back. He's just dropped outside the top 15 now after that loss. I'm a big fan of Fiziev, and I actually have him winning this fight. I do think it goes to decision. I've got 29-28. But I just think if Fiziev can put pressure on, and I like his IQ for someone who is not got the wins against the top flight competition yet. Just like I just mentioned, he's fought the likes of Justin Gaethje, the new interim champion. So nothing lost there. He actually likes to throw in a takedown late in the rounds, which, depending on who the judges are, can win you around. If it's pretty tight, which I reckon this one could be, it's going to depend on who can stick to their game plan and who can shut off. For Fiziev, he wants to shut off the octagon, put Mauricio Rufy up against this fence. That way he's shutting down those spinning attacks, It's not going to be quite so easy for him to stay at that range, keep that distance, like you said, teep kicks, spinning kicks, some big looping strikes where he wants to be in the pocket. If he can push him up against the fence, maybe even initiates a bit of clinch grappling, that Muay Thai style. The guy pretty much lives out of Tiger Muay Thai out there in Thailand. So I've got a 29-28 for Fiziev. I think it's going to be an absolute banger. I think Ruffy, I don't really see Fiziev as a submission threat. Obviously, Benoit Saint Denis, the last guy to submit Hoofy. But, Craig Jones has been in the Volk camp. Hoofy's now moved teams officially. You got to think, I don't believe he'd officially moved before his loss to Benoit Saint Denis away from the fighting nerds. I know it was all talk. They had a bit of movement there. I think it'd be good. He's a little bit more settled. He's working with some experienced quality grapplers and also just all-round MMA fighters. So it's going to be a banger. Wouldn't surprise me if Hoofy wins, but I don't see this one going to knockout because I just think these guys are just too defensively sound on the feet. So, yeah, that's my prediction. But we'll move on to the next one. What have we got? We've got the co-main event in Dan Hooker and Benoit Saint Denis. Tell me you're excited for this one.
Mate, I'm absolutely excited for this one. You know that when Dan Hooker is on the card, you know that there's going to be some violence. It's going to be a very exciting one. We've got the God of War in Benoit Saint Denis. He is a very underappreciated fighter. I think, maybe not the dark horse of the division, but after that loss to Dustin Poirier, he's bounced back in pretty spectacular fashion. He's taken out the likes of Mauricio Rufy, who's also on this card. He got that immaculate knockout of Dayrush. That was insane within like 20 seconds of the fight. And he's putting together a pretty impressive streak. He's really edging on that top five of the division. So, maybe if he wins this one, maybe we give him a Paddy Pimblett, who obviously just had a pretty rough fight with Justin Gaethje, the now interim champ of the lightweight division. So this is definitely shaping up to be a very good fight. I think Dan Hooker's making a pretty quick turnaround. I think he only lost to Arman in November. Didn't take too much damage in that fight. Luckily, that headbutt at the weigh-ins didn't cut him. But, I think we're going to see a good display of mixed martial arts from Benoit. And I think that is his key to victory. I think he's got very good striking, but so does Dan, coming out of City Kickboxing, veteran of the UFC, working with the likes of Navajo Sterling, Israel Adesanya. You've got some absolute weapons in that gym. But I just think that, Benoit is on such a tear, and I think he's the more complete mixed martial artist. Dan is like, I don't care if I get hurt. It seems like he's kind of just fighting to fight because he loves it. He probably knows that I probably will not touch gold. But Benoit, that's his goal. He's trying to climb to the top. That's always been the goal. And I think that he's going to show that he's dedicated to that goal more so than Dan, as much as it pains me to say, because he is an Anzac. And I do love Dan Hooker, and it's no disrespect to him. But I can't see him winning this fight. I think for Dan, it kind of goes back to what we've been saying about most of these fights. It's you got to try and do what Dustin Poirier did to him. You got to try and counter-strike. Benoit does have a bit of a habit of dropping his hands in those exchanges. And if you can, take advantage of that with a big hook or a big uppercut down the pipe, you might be able to get one over on him. I don't think there will be the submission threat from Hooker, but I think he's got to play it at his pace. He's got to go out there and he's got to get Benoit on the back foot. Mm-hmm. That's my sort of take on it. But if you want my official prediction, I see a finish from Benoit. I don't know. I see some sort of finish in the late second round. That's my prediction.
By the on the ground or striking, or how are you seeing this finish come to fruition?
I'm gonna go with knockout. With knockout.
Nice. No, I like it. I think for me, I love Dan Hooker, but I think a lot of people ride off of. He's had a couple of performances where he clearly shows he's got the talent, he's got the heart, and he's got the drive, but it's just too inconsistent for me. He beat the likes of Gamrot in the most recent times, and then, he obviously had that absolute barn burner against Poirier. Whereas if you redo that fight with Poirier and Hooker, who knows if that goes the same way, slightly different game planning from Poirier. I think he wins it a bit more easily, but yeah, I think we're really starting to see this new guard of MMA where you've got this Armands and your Benoits coming through and they're maturing, they're getting far better, and they're going, you know what, I can have a firefight with this guy. And Islam used to talk about it. He goes, this guy have no grappling, brother. And like a Hoofy, you had Benoit Saint Denis versus Hoofy. He doesn't want to stand up and bang with that guy. He's taking him straight down. And I think if you look at Hooker's last fight, soon as Armand got into the ground, even though he was a bit scrappy, and I think Hooker had a couple of opportunities in sort of the scramble to get to his back. He doesn't want to grapple. He probably has the level of grappling to maintain position for a little bit, but against these top guys, like Benoit's a good black belt. We saw what he did to Poirier in those first couple of rounds, transitioning, constantly taking him down. Poirier thought he was about to get the statue on his front lawn of him with the guillotine, but it didn't come through. I've got it going sort of similarly to how Poirier versus Benoit went down the first couple of rounds, but I don't see Hooker getting the finish. I think he's just going to dominate him on the ground, and I see a finish by a ground and pound in round 2 or 3. I think. Yeah, that's just what I think that Dan Hooker's going to have to go 2, 3 years Dagestan and forget. If I'm truly honest with you, the easiest losses of his career have been to the likes of good grapplers. Islam, first round, took him straight down. He had no answer. And then, got that Kimura. And then you've got Arman absolutely dominated him on the ground. It was a fantastic tight head and arm choke. But I could see a rear naked from Benoit Saint Denis or
Mm.
probably just ground and pound. I think, I don't think Benoit's quite as slick and as pretty in his jiu-jitsu as some of these other guys because, he's an ex-war veteran and he loves the blood and he's coming for you, as you said, the God of War. I think he gets him down. I think he hurts him. I think he tires him out. Grappling is so tiring, as we both know. And that's going to make it easier to take him down in the second or the third. And he's going to finish him with ground and pound. It's my official prediction. But
Mm.
yeah, exciting, exciting, exciting. Honestly, I can't really pick. If we're saying the worst fight is the heavyweight division on this card potentially for a viewership, and it's probably going to end in a round 1 or 2 knockouts. Our prediction. It's not a bad card, but the moment we've all been waiting for. You can give us your official prediction. Obviously, you've trained down there in Volk's gym against Diego Lopez, who coming off a win against Gene Silver. Diego with that spinning elbow potentially could have been knockout of the year last year. Was a contender. But yeah, what do you got? What do you got for us? What are you thinking?
Absolutely. I've had a lot of conversations with people about this fight, and a lot of people are saying, nah, the rematch is never the same. Well, you can say that about a few people, but not Volk. Trilogy sweep against Max Holloway. Earlier in his career, yes, but you can't count out the fight IQ of this man. I think that Volk has one of, if not the highest fight IQ in the entirety of the sport, bar a couple little things. The thing that scares me is when he backs up straight with his chin like this. That's how he got clipped by Taporia. That's the only thing that makes me a little bit worried. But, he's always evolving, even as a 37-year-old, two-time champion of the world. I just can't see this fight going differently. I know that Diego is going to be aggressive, especially coming off of that big win over Gene. He's going to have that confidence. He's had 25 minutes with the champ. So he's had that little feel out experience. So I think both of them are going to be new versions of themselves coming into this fight. Volk's hungrier than ever, even at his age of 37. I've heard through the grapevine that when he wins this one, he wants to keep going, you know. So I really don't think that he's got his eyes on retirement, kind of like the talks we saw from Justin Gaethje last week. I think that this is going to be another 49, 46, 50, 45 decision for the GOAT. I think we're going to see a lot of the same. We're going to see some of that crisp counter striking, closing the distance, going to some of the grappling, clinching up. I think Volk knows how to dismantle these guys. He's got, like I said, one of the best game plans, one of the best IQs in the division. And as long as he's smart with his positioning, he's not going to get into those firefights like he did in that round where he got dropped. I think that he's going to win this fight. I think it's going to be a clean sweep. I think Diego, he's got a granite chin. I think if he comes out swinging, then he could potentially get the knockout, but he could also get stung himself, which we did see him get stung by Volk. Do I think he gets knocked out by Volk? Probably not. But I think he's got the advantage in the grappling. If it does go there, he's got the jiu-jitsu, which is typically for counter wrestling. But I just think that Volk sweeps in every area except chin. So I'm going to 49-46 Volkanovski masterclass. I'm going to give it over to you for your prediction.
Oh, I know you love Volk, and I know I do too, but that's quite the prediction there. I do agree with you in the sense that I have this belief with almost all fighters when you're coming off of a win, and the only thing that really worried me in that last fight was Volk's chin. Like you said, he's coming off two knockout losses prior to this one. He showed his experience and his class, and like you said, his IQ is second to none. I only personally in the sport have John Jones above him. PEDs and all sorts of excuses aside, he's a fantastic fighter. But yeah, Volk, he was not pound for pound number one for a reason, and he was a machine. And he went toe to toe with Islam in their first fight for a reason. He's got a great camp around him. He's back in shape. He looks good. He's got that confidence. I see him winning this fight, like you said, provided his chin holds up. It still was a worry. He got clipped in that last fight. Diego's super reckless. And, we saw with the Gene Silver fight, he hits and he throws random shots from crazy angles that you don't necessarily see coming. If Volk ends up being on the wrong end of something like that, goes for a takedown and, spinning elbow comes through or a knee or, a kick. Diego, he's a wild man. Do I think he's going to be sharper this time around? I do. He's going to have gone away. He's devastated that he lost. He's young. He's going to have probably, if he loses this one, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him back in another title fight once Volk's retired. I don't think he gets a trilogy against Volk at this point of Volk's career. But yeah, I do see it being a lot closer this time. I still think it goes to decision. I like Diego on the ground, so I think Volk's going to keep it off the floor. He's got some fantastic submissions off his back. We saw his fight on debut against Movzar. He had thrown off triangles, thrown up knee bars, which was so close to finishing Movzar. A lot of guys would have tapped to that. So I think Volk will want to keep it off the ground. I think Volk will like the pressure, or he'll stay on the outside early like he did in the last fight. And I could see him coming into range and, clinching with him on the fence like he attempted to do in his last fight. Just really point fighting it, control time. Potentially he'll get a few small little sweeps and takedowns like I think he got one in their last bout. But yeah, I like the mindset of Volk. He's a true Aussie warrior. He's the epitome of what every Aussie fighter wants to be. He wants to be there, even at his age. Adversity is a privilege. What a quote. He wants to get through through Lopez. He's not overlooking him at all. I think he's coming in. He's got that confidence. He's going to trust in his ability, trust in his chin. He's going to move off that center line. He got clipped from Topuria because his chin couldn't handle it. He came back too quick. His confidence was down. He spoke openly about how he was drinking and he wasn't in shape. So I think he's back. It's the second wave. Not the Volk that we once knew in regards to prime, but I see him winning this one 48-47.
48-47. Okay. Well, I think we're on par with the method of victory. Maybe not the discrepancy in points, but again, this is going to be, regardless, this is going to be an incredible fight card. We've got a stacked main card. Top to bottom, they're going to be entertaining fights. I think that they've done a really good job for the first two not pay-per-views, but numbered events of this year. And I think it's going to be incredible. One thing that I do sort of want to touch on before we end off is the production quality from Paramount. I think I was quite disappointed with not seeing walkouts and watching ads for
I agree with
large majority of the card. We got the Dana White. Oh, it's $8.99. What do you expect, kid? You're not paying $70. But I think regardless, you're paying for a subscription service, and this is meant to be one of the highest quality produced sports in the whole world. And I think it's a real shame that we've got this $7 billion deal and we're pumping ads on what was a pay-per-view with minimal ads. Like, I know it's not a pay-per-view anymore, but these ads aren't making the money. Like, realistically, we should, on the main card, we should not have ads. Prelims, okay, maybe a couple. We don't on the fight nights, we don't really see walkouts bar the main card or the main event. I think, he did say it's a feeling out process and we are learning as we go because, same would have been true for ESPN. I'm sure that there were things that they ironed out as they went on. But I got to say, as a fan and as an enjoyer of the sport, it really ruined the momentum of the card for me personally. I don't know about yourself, but yeah, it killed it for me.
No, definitely. And I think you've got to give Paramount an opportunity. You know, they probably haven't brought too many people across from ESPN. They're trying to do their own thing. It's not worked. The feedback's not worked. We'll see how it goes this week and in the coming months. You know, maybe they'll make a few changes this week, and this will all be history. But I agree with you. You know, you lose out on some really fantastic moments. You know, obviously we got to see Paddy and Gaethje walk out for the main event, but some of our fighters that are coming out in those walkouts, you know, like especially in some arenas in Brazil, you know, in the UK, I'm sure it'll be, you know, some Aussie fighters this weekend. Like when you've got that home crowd advantage, some of those walkouts, they are the main event. If that fighter goes on to win or lose, you know, people remember that. Like it's fantastic. So the other thing I really was a bit disappointed was between rounds, obviously, you know, prime time for them to have ads. But you look at a fight like an Alex Pereira versus Adesanya one in the UFC. How amazing was that? You know, his coach getting up him and saying like, you know, you're going to go out and be a world champion, and you saw him fire him up. Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman. You know, if we're cutting that out, it doesn't necessarily have to be for a title fight. That could be the difference between the trajectory of someone's career getting bought into and then becoming a potential superstar in the future, and not if we're missing that sort of stuff. So I've got to agree with you. I think the ads have got to improve. Small changes, timing. You know, there's ways that they can go about improving the sport. But I like to give them time. It's new.
Yeah,
They've got the budget. We'll see what happens. If there's no improvement in the short term, then I think people could be pretty upset. You know, I know in Australia alone, people are already a little bit upset with still under the pay per view model through KO. People thinking they're buying the Paramount deal. I don't even know if a lot of people are aware of that. Hopefully, if they tune into Rolling Thunder MMA, you know, we might be the first to drop the bad news on them. But you know, you're still paying that $60. So if you're then streaming through Paramount and getting the ads, it's not great.
yeah, absolutely not. And yeah, to be honest, I was shocked. I downloaded Paramount, got an account, signed up, and then I would realize that I could only see the prelims. And I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me! I still got to buy the pay per view. So,
Mm.
you know, it is quite disappointing. I think that, you know, it is a teething period, and maybe a couple of years into the deal, maybe they'll roll a few more sort of out there internationally. But until then, we will put up with it because it's the sport that we love. And luckily, this Sunday, I'm not going to have any ads because I'll be there on the side of the octagon watching very, very intently. And it's going to be an amazing time. It's going to be a great time. Going to be a great card. Fantastic way to kick off February. And yeah, I'm extremely excited.
I'm extremely jealous. Well, yeah, catch us on Thursday. We'll be going to a meet and greet with Jack Della Maddalena and Craig Jones in Sydney and Oxford Street. So we'll have some stuff for you there. But thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.
See you later.